would love to know about. What's the aliens' take on gravity? And how does that add up and compare to my theory of dynamic gravity? And some of you might be saying, well, first of all, how do you know aliens are real? And how do you know what their gravity is like? And how do you know your gravity is comparable? And the answer to all three of these questions is mostly the same. When I was 10, many decades ago, I woke up in the middle of the night once, and long story short, I was abducted. So I'm not going to tell you what the alien told me. It wasn't for you, it was for me. But needless to say, since then, I've had this nagging thing in my brain that just won't let me stop on trying to conquer gravity and create the first spaceship for our pathetic species of Homo sapiens. And being one of the few people who have actually seen a fucking alien live, I can tell you some things. Like, I can tell you when someone is showing you a picture of a real alien, or it's just bullshit. It's just CGI that they made up, that they tried to do the best they could. And with that, let's dig in and let's get to the bottom of alien gravity. What is it? How does it work? And how does my theory of gravity stack up? So, some of you probably aware, not too long ago, a month or so ago, in Las Vegas, in the middle of the city of all places, there was a spaceship that just crash landed in the back of some dude's yard with a bunch of tractors and front loaders and equipment and stuff like that. And I knew immediately this was a legit instance and not some fake thing. It's pretty obvious. The people, when they have a video of everything and you can see they're terrified. But it starts off with a police officer actually interviewing someone, miles away. And his camera, on his body camera, captured the spacecraft crash landing into their back. There it is right there. It's kind of like a bluish green hue for some reason, which is weird, but they can change color whenever they want. And it crashed, and they went, then the family in the back of this house, they called the police immediately and said, hey, there's a spaceship crash in our backyard, and there's aliens, and we're terrified. Please help us. And so the cops came out there like an hour later. Don't know why they took so long.
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they...
Yeah, and so they go out there, and, this is them going into the backyard, but I think they black it out. The family does take a video, but you can't really see much of anything because it's so far away and it's nighttime and there's lights. But... There was something that I saw that really hit me profoundly. And what that is here. Let me take you. This is going to be a very long and interesting episodes, kiddies. So buckle up. So,
breaking footage emerging.
This is from
TikTok,
someone's
all over YouTube.
Ring camera that they had captured that went out, and I guess they had replaced the battery of it to get it working again. When they did, they retrieved these images, and this was apparently in the neighborhood of that UFO incident in Las Vegas. Allegedly, I hadn't confirmed that, but here it was from this apparently.
in Instagram and, Twitter. This footage right
you see,
here
that's
literally an actual Ring doorbell camera footage.
See, it's actually moving in slow motion. You can see it
someone
moving.
named Pedro. We're
It's
not
pretty
gonna
crazy, right? But you want to know how do I know that this is real? Because that's what I saw when I was 10 years old. Is that right there? I woke up to it, and it's a very terrifying look, and it's a very odd look that is not normal. And when people try and fake it with CGI, they never get it right, or suits or whatever. They never get it right. And this is it though. This is what they look like. You want to know what the aliens look like? This is what they look like right here. This is it. 100%.
alien
right there.
that was mentioned in the Las Vegas,
That's
Nevada
it.
911 call. The big almond eyes.
Yeah. So, now you might be saying, okay, all right, that's cool. Well, how do you know what the alien gravity theory is? All right, let's take a look at that. First, please give me just 1 second to reload this video. And I need to load. There we go. All right. So, this is how. Because in 1990, I don't know, in 1989, I think it was, Bob Lazar came out of Area 51. He got released by George Knapp. He said, hey, dude, I worked at Area 51, and there's these aliens, and I know things, and they briefed me on things, and I worked on the spaceships. And, everybody was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Well, I took note because everything Bob Lazar said was conclusive of what I knew to be factual from my own experiences when I was a child, which was before 1989. Actually, in 1989, believe it or not. Same year Bob Lazar came out. But in 1992 or 3 or something, I think it was, another guy came out of Area 51, another whistleblower named Victor. And he released a videotape that he had smuggled out of Area 51. And this is what was on the tape. This is it right here. It is essentially aliens, or an alien that is being kind of interrogated, by our government, Area 51, after a crash allegedly happened in South Africa, which, just keep in mind, after this crash in South Africa, which is like, I think, 89 or something, South Africa became the only country in the history of the world to denuclearize. They had nukes, they created nukes, and the aliens started showing up in one crash, or they shot down one, and they didn't want to play that anymore, so they get rid of them. So, fun fact. But this is the video he released. I'm not going to show the video. It's just, it's bad quality. It's, from like the 80s, and he took out the sound, so it's just basically, you can see stuff like this is another screenshot of it. Same thing, just different angle, but you can see that's what they look like, right? And that looks exactly like that other alien that I just showed you, right? Yeah, the only two I've seen that look exactly like it. So now Victor came out, and he of course released this video, which I knew immediately as soon as I saw it, like, that's it. That's a real alien. I know. And then a lot of things that he said on the like hour and a half long interview he did with Art Bell, Coast to Coast. I can verify all of it was 100% legit. I know it all from fact. So I knew he was legit, the real deal. And since then, I really haven't seen any. Except, of course, this Las Vegas crash. Now, one of the things that Victor did do, thank you, was he validated Bob Lazar, where he would not say that whether or not he ever worked with Bob Lazar, saw him, or whether even Bob Lazar worked at Area 51. But he did say, listen, almost everything this guy says is factual and true. He really does have this information. And although not everything he says is 100% because of this misinformation they did to tell who was spreading the leaks, they would have like facts, and they would tell one guy a lie, and then and they would do that for everybody. And then whenever someone would come out, you know, if they released that lie that they told that one guy, they know, okay, it had to be from that guy because he was the one guy we told that lie to. And that's the lie that got spread, you know, on the release. So just one of the games that the military plays when you're a scientist working on this stuff. But Victor did validate Bob Lazar. And well, Bob Lazar, you know, claims that he worked on the spacecraft. One of them called the Sportster, Speedster, or whatever, model after this right here. And this is how it works. When it went from planet to planet, it would alien its belly and have 3 gravity amplifiers. It would suck it towards it. And it was on on the planet, it would just have one that would be balancing it, and the other 2 would be giving it mobility, moving around and stuff like that, and then the amplifier. But one of the greatest things Bob Lazar ever did is he created the government Bible excerpts, and I'm forever in his and his debt for this. So
Liz, how do you generate a gravitational
he did this
field?
shortly after he came out, like in the early
I've
90s.
used the term generate to describe the capability
And
of producing
I don't want to play it, you know, for you too much because if I do, it might get copyrighted, you know.
small or
and I don't
micro
want that.
scale, while gravity B works on a large or macro scale.
But
We are familiar with gravity
Yeah.
B. It is the big gravity
we're just
wave
going to
that holds
listen
the Earth
briefly, and then I'm going to tell you everything that he says it's important that we
as
need
well
to know.
as the rest of the
All right?
planets in orbit
But
around the sun.
this
and
is
holds the
him
moon as
explaining
well as man-made
gravity as
satellites
best
in
he
orbit
was
around the
taught
Earth.
it when he was briefed on
We
it
are not
in the
familiar with
program when he
gravity
first
A.
got there.
It is the small gravity wave, which is the
But yeah.
major contributory force that holds together the mass that makes up all wave that
So,
works on a stellar
yeah.
or planetary level.
He says there's 2 forms
However,
of
don't
gravity,
mistake the
gravity
size of these
A and
waves
gravity
for their
B, and that you know, gravity A is inside the innards of the atom, all atoms, and gravity B is how it manifests itself outside the atom, and that it is in a wave-like nature.
Because gravity A is a much stronger force than gravity B. You can momentarily break the gravity B field of the Earth simply by jumping in the air. So this is.
And like I say, I wasn't 100% certain that Bob Lazar was legit until Victor validated him. But yeah, he is. He's 100% legit. This is a fact. This is exactly, Bob Lazar was briefed on this is how the aliens told us gravity really works. None of this general relativity bullshit. This is how it works. At least this is how the aliens manipulate it to make their spaceships work. So you can sit there and be a general relativity fanboy all you want to the end of time, but at the end of the day, ain't nobody outside this planet and this whole universe believe you that that's how gravity works. There's space-time. It's just not a thing.
Not an intense gravitational field. Locating gravity A is no problem because it is found in the nucleus of every atom of all matter to the mass that makes up protons and neutrons.
Gravity
this
A and
means
B.
the gravity A wave we are trying to access is virtually inaccessible as it is located within matter, or at least within...
And now here he's basically just saying that there's certain elements, like the higher periodic table elements, where the gravity A inside of the atom will actually go outside of the atom. It will perpetrate or bleed out outside of the atom, further out to where it can actually be accessed, you know, by various technological means.
However, the Earth is not representative of all matter within our universe.
Oh, wow, those
The
graphics
residual
back
matter
in
which remains after
1990
the
are
creation
pretty
of the solar system
sweet,
is totally
weren't they?
dependent on the contributing factors which were present during the creation of the solar system. This is true whether you believe that the origin of the universe was an evolutionary event or that a supreme being caused this event to happen. The two main factors which determine what residual matter remains after the creation
would be basically the amount of
solar
mass.
system are the amount of electromagnetic energy and the amount of mass present during the solar system's requisite mass and electromagnetic 88 of the first longer than that of element 1.
Okay, so here he starts going off into the power element 115. I think how it's used to power the craft, and he's breaking away from gravity now, I believe, and going into how the craft is powered.
The fact is that heavier stable elements with higher atomic numbers, which have more protons, neutrons, and electrons than any Earth elements, do exist. However, up until this point in history, there has been no physical evidence to prove this.
But we know there is because, like I said, they briefed Bob Lazar on it. And we know that most of Bob Lazar's information is correct, as validated by Victor. There might be a little bit that's
now
off.
That proof is here.
But,
the most important attribute of these heavier stable elements is that the gravity A wave is so abundant that it actually extends past the perimeter of the atom. These heavier stable elements literally have their own gravity A field around them,
really
in
impressive
addition to the gravity B field that is native to all elements. No naturally occurring...
I just want to make sure there's no copyright here. We just want to go over his basic information so we can review it.
For the cumulative gravity A wave to extend past the perimeter of the atom so you can access it.
Yeah.
To demonstrate
and here
how
he's just saying that gravity
A wave to extend past the perimeter of the atom so you can access it.
Yeah. Here he's saying it extends past, and you can access that wave and amplify it and stuff.
It is accessible, and it has amplitude, wavelength, and frequency, just like any other wave in the electromagnetic spectrum. Once you can access the gravity A wave, you can amplify it just like we amplify any other electromagnetic wave. To demonstrate how a wave is amplified, we can use this oscilloscope, and as you can see, it graphically
here he just goes off into regular waves and amplifies it and stuff like that. There was two things about the way Bob Lazar portrays the gravity as it was taught to him, as alien gravity was taught to him, that at first I thought kind of contradict my theory of gravity. Let's go into that. Yes. Apologies if this is ugly, but not everything in life is beautiful. So, here's what we got. Here's basically all the main points that we need to know that Bob Lazar made, that he was taught, that are important, okay? Number one, there are two types of gravity, right? There's gravity A, which is a small gravity wave that holds the atom together. Now, he was told this is what is currently labeled as the strong force by our science. And that gravity A is stronger than gravity B. And that gravity A is just within the atom. Now, here's the first difference between alien gravity and my theory of dynamic gravity. My theory of dynamic gravity states that gravity is displacement of the electromagnetic force, which holds the atom together in the form of the electron and proton. And I also do believe it does attribute for the strong force too. I know it does if you get a high enough energy, they merge together. That's been proven. But I'm talking about, I believe they're actually the same force. It's just they're acting in different ways because you'll have negative entities like on a proton, you'll have another electron that'll get eaten by that, and then it'll be coming to a neutron. And now, instead of having a proton, with a positivity, you have a neutron that's neutral and with a negative tip to it, and that's what allows the binding. But it's all really the electromagnetic force, ultimately. Now, of course, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would debate that and argue with me to the end of time. And I'm not saying they're identical. They're being manifested in different ways, but ultimately it's the same force that's creating that. At least that's the way it all makes perfect sense to me. All right. So, yes, he says it's the strong force. I personally believe it's the EM, the electromagnetic force in the atom. Now, this could, once again, like I said, the scientists were told a lie every now and then. So if they ever blabbed that information, the people, their handlers at these programs would know who was the person that blabbed because they know that's the one we told the lie to. So it's entirely possible they told Bob Lazar a lie here. that it is the electromagnetic force, and they just told them the strong force in case the lab they would know, or that maybe when they're interpreting and interviewing the aliens, because it's all done through psychic mediums who are kind of bullshitting probably most times, let's be honest, they might have misinterpreted that. Or maybe you can just, like I said, argue that the strong force and the electromagnetic force are the same force. Physics will tell you that if you get to a high enough temperature. I believe it's just the way that they operate. They just use different ways, but it is ultimately the same force. But that's what the aliens say. There's two types of gravity, gravity A and then gravity B. And gravity B is much larger waves, and that is what acts traditionally as what we know as gravity. Like, we are familiar with gravity B is what we call just gravity, but the aliens call it gravity B. And then the force inside the atom, whatever it's doing, they call it gravity A. And of course, gravity A is a lot stronger than gravity B. As Bob Lazar says, you can defeat gravity B by jumping up in the air for a moment, but defeating gravity A, it's literally, you see how much force is released in a nuclear bomb when we crack open an atom and forcibly rip gravity A apart and release that energy. It's insane. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot stronger than gravity B. And this works out very well for my theory of gravity, which says that gravity is a displacement of a stronger force. So it is that force, but it's being displaced outward at a much weaker, to a much weaker extent than it would normally be. Okay. Now, Bob Lazar says, currently we have no way to access gravity A. We don't. The aliens do, though. And gravity A is in all atoms. It's what holds them together. The EM force or the strong force. Depends. In normal matter, only gravity B extends past the atom. So in normal matter, if the gravity is not able to get past the limits of the atom and only in the displaced form, which is what we know as gravity B. But in the higher elements, like element 115, I think is where it really starts to shine, which is why they use element 115 and to make the craft. Is where gravity A starts extending outward beyond the atom's edge, where the aliens are able to use their technology to capture that wave, amplify it, maybe even change the wavelength, I don't know. And yeah, and then basically use it to power the craft. That's how they run the craft off gravity, or use gravity as the force to move the craft around. It's because they're able to access the gravity from the subatomic realm and basically convert it into gravity B form, make it much more powerful too, which is why the craft can travel faster than the speed of light. Something else that is impossible if you believe in general relativity. They use a waveguide to guide gravity A wavelength to the amplifiers in the underbelly of the craft. Bob Lazar talks about this. He says he goes into detail about when he was working on it one time, this waveguide. He even calculated the wavelength of the gravity wave. That it was going by the dimensions of the waveguide, but as far as I know, he never told us what that calculated value was. Would have been real nice to know if he did. And then the waveguide takes the gravity A from the reactor, where it is siphoned off into the gravity amplifiers and underbelly of the craft, which convert large sums like gigawatts of electricity and use that electricity to amplify the gravity A wave. And they can also reverse the polarity of that electricity, which will also reverse the polarity of the gravity A wavelength, which is why the craft can go up and down very quickly, because that's how fast they can reverse the polarity. So they can go towards the Earth extremely fast and then go away from it extremely fast, all with the same amplifier, just by reversing the polarity. Pretty cool trick. And then gravity A wave has an amplitude, frequency, and wavelength, just like all of the waves. It can be adjusted. That's what Bob Lazar said. And the spacecraft uses a beam of gravity A to push or pull the craft depending on polarity. So this is an important thing we have to know, is that the craft, it's not creating a gravitational field, all right? A field where it's going out omnidirectional, okay? It's actually doing like a laser beam, like a wavelength laser of gravity waves that it's shooting between the craft and whatever object is trying to play off of, like the Earth, any planet, whatever. And that beam is doing the work. It's generating the work of making the craft go up and down depending on the polarity. But you have to remember that there is a field, a gravity field that's generated by, I think, the reactor, Bob Lazar says, and energizes the outside of the craft. And that's what allows the occupants in the craft to travel at such radical accelerations and decelerations without dying instantly. Is because you're enveloping yourself in an exterior gravitational field, which is nullifying the planet's gravitational field as you're traveling through it and whatnot. But yes, the gravity amplifiers, to my knowledge, are shooting out a beam of gravity, kind of like. Like here, like it says, you see they're shooting a beam. It's not a field going omnidirectional. It's an actual beam. Okay? So, now we've established. How do we know aliens are real? What do we look like? How to identify them? And what do they think of gravity? Okay? The final thing is that we need to go over is how in the hell does this stack up against my theory of dynamic gravity? Well, pretty good, because I'll tell you, in all honesty, I watched Bob Lazar excerpts of the Government Bible and his explanation on how alien gravity worked. And I made sure that any theory of gravity that I came up with was going to be compatible with that, because I knew it to be true for a fact. I knew Bob Lazar was not lying. So I knew it had to be compatible, or it was not going to be viable. It was not going to last and stand the test of time if I was even able to make it work out at all. So my theory of gravity actually turns out to work pretty good. All right. It holds together really amazingly. Okay. Excuse me. Brain damage from the war. I should see the other guy, though. So, Bob Lazar says that an atom has gravity A wavelengths that are holding it together. And it somehow, these wavelengths don't normally extend beyond the limitations of the atom, and if they do, it is now going to be a gravity B, a much larger and weaker waveform, right? And there's gravity, two types, gravity A and gravity B. My theory of gravity says, okay, as we, have protons stuck together, the fields that they're generating are going to merge, and they're going to get displaced out further. And you have the electron, shell of the atom, and if you have enough protons stacked in the middle of this, now this field inside is going to extend out. Now, technically, it would almost be an infinite field because of the way that the virtual photons operate. There's the God, what is it, like Pascal? I don't know. There's this theory that a field is just simply manipulating space itself, and the space has those properties inherently built into it. I do not believe that. I believe that it is simply a matter of radiation displacement or dispersion from photons. Virtual photons. We're talking about force-bearing particles for electromagnetic force or gravity, which my theory would say they're the same. All right, so there's going to be the gravity that's going to be holding, or not gravity, but the electromagnetic force, which is going to be holding the electron, to the atom. Holding the atom together, and when the electron gets eaten by a proton and turns into a neutron, it will also hold the neutrons and protons together in the form of the strong force. And it will release virtual photons that will go out, and these virtual photons are going to be a wave, just like a photon is a wave. It's going to have a frequency and an amplitude and a direction, like Bob Lazar says gravity waves have. So it is going to be, gravity is essentially going to be a wave, or a bunch of tiny virtual photon waves. Now, keep in mind, when Bob Lazar said this back in the '89, he was laughed at. All the physicists called him an idiot because they're like, oh, this guy clearly has no clue how gravity works. It obviously is transported in the graviton. And it's like, yeah, cool story, bro. But we found out now, 30 years later, that that's not really the case, and gravity does have wave-like properties at the very least. Because ultimately my theory of gravity is correct, dynamic gravity, and it says that gravity, the carrier particle, is a virtual photon, which is going to be a wave. And this is why it's infinite, is because a virtual photon, if it's not interrupted, if it's not captured by anything, it'll just keep going on forever, self-propagating, boop, 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 all for infinity. But when it does eventually hit something, it's only going to have, if it's really far away, it's only going to be this one virtual photon, so it's going to be a very, very small gravitational force. It's going to be affected by it. So yes, there is, my theory of gravity says there is two types of gravity. The gravity that holds the atom together, electromagnetic force, and then when it's displaced out from, the inner core of the atom being too packed, now you're going to have that field that's going to go further out, but really it's not a field. Really, like I said, it's just a bunch of virtual photons in a specific orientation. And then there's also, it might even be broken down into a polarity thing as well. This is what I'm trying to figure out now. It seems like I've hit some dead ends on the rabbit holes I've gone in, where my question is, and I haven't gotten any answers that I find satisfying, is, okay, you have a proton, right, and an electron. Well, both of these are the same charge, right? It's just, one is larger and one is smaller, but they have the same charge. They have the same strength of charge. So my question is a virtual photon that is emitted from the proton exactly identical to the one that's emitted from the electron? And to be honest, we don't know. They have measured what they think are photons, regular photons being emitted from a cyclotron from protons that they believe seem to be pretty much the same as a photon from a electron. Now, I don't know if they can detect polarity or what they're detecting. Maybe they're just detecting amplitude or something, or frequency. But I don't find that as satisfying information to know definitively. But I do know this: if they are different, if they're identical in every way, just opposite polarity, because this one's a plus and this one's a negative, when it comes to the field, then I can honestly say that I understand everything about gravity. Everything. There is nothing that you can stump me on. I know as much as the fucking aliens about gravity. The only difference is they just have some cool, clever tricks they figured out to, create gravity beams. And I've been working on it the last month or two. I haven't released a video for a hot minute, but I have been working very hard on many things that I'm going to release soon. And I think I figured out how to make a gravity gun. Let's just leave it at that. So, yeah, but if this is not the case, if these two virtual photons are 100% identical, whether they are released from an electron or a proton, then I got to say I still understand almost everything about gravity. It's just on the actual subatomic level, there's a couple things I still haven't quite figured out with the virtual photons. But if the virtual photons are of opposite polarity, like I suspect, I can now say I've got it all figured out. Everything, 100% done. So that is how my theory stacks up to Bob Lazar's gravity, alien gravity that he was taught while working at Area 51. They both are essentially using waves as the carrier particle. They can be directional, but usually they're omnidirectional because of the way that the virtual photons are released. There's two types. Both of us have two types. I might even have two types of two types. Might even go deeper into that. But yeah, make no mistake about it. My theory of gravity is exactly. It's almost a cookie cutout of Bob Lazar's explanation of how he was taught gravity, minus the fact that if you just instead of say strong force, electromagnetic force, but even that is kind of debatable. Now, of course, Bob Lazar didn't go into very deep detail or use any mathematics that he was told or anything like that, and that's where my theory goes deeper. But yes, when I was first working on my theory of gravity some 25 years ago, yes, I was very much aware of alien gravity, how it worked. And yes, you could say I was trying to deconstruct that with our known laws of physics that we have. And dynamic gravity is the first time where I succeeded. Where I found a theory that could explain everything and coincided with everything, all observations, including Bob Lazar's alien gravity. Yeah, I think I nailed it. I think I got it right. All I got to do now is just create a spaceship to prove everybody wrong, because no one's ever going to believe me otherwise. Even though I have the math, even though I can calculate everything, it doesn't matter. People are stubborn, all kinds of stubborn. So, yeah, I hope that I answered any and all questions that you might have had regarding alien gravity and how well dynamic gravity compares to alien gravity. I will say this, general relativity does not do a very good job comparing to alien gravity. General relativity doesn't have any waves. I mean, you could say the wave nature of space-time when it's rippling, but, that's just all ridiculousness anyways, to be honest. And there's no such thing as space-time. We've proven this. We can't find it in any laboratory anywhere. There's no test. Yeah. Einstein's theory of gravity, general relativity, does not hold up very well to alien gravity at all. At all. But my theory does. So on that note, I wish you all a beautiful evening. Stay fresh, and I'll catch you next time. Adios.
Like, subscribe, submit.